If you're an American or Canadian or Aussie of Irish Catholic descent like me, you've probably hit a wall once you reach Ireland, because it's so easy to find people with the same name as your ancestor. I'm Mike ONeill. I'm a big data professional, an amateur genealogist, who has made tons of mistakes since I picked up genealogy as a hobby in 2011. I want to help you avoid some of my mistakes. When I try to connect my Irish American ancestors to their family in Ireland, I try to do three things. One, I remind myself that every name will have multiple individuals. Two, I try to narrow it down to just one townland. And three, I try to find at least one fact with both Irish and U.S. records. First off, the names. Let's take my great-grandfather, Patrick Valentine ONeill. Family oral history puts his place of birth as Carlisle in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland. In 1996, my family visited this teensy little town in Northern Ireland, and we found, among other things, police stations that looked like they had been lifted right out of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, which I had visited the year previously. There was also a museum to accommodate all of the Irish diaspora coming back to the old country to see where their ancestors had come from. When we got to the museum, the docent asked us our surnames. When we told her ONeill, she rolled her eyes and said, "Ah, I was an ONeill before I got married." Her point seemed to be that half the town were ONeills. Back to Patrick. He was born in 1877 to Patrick ONeill Sr. and Mary ONeill. That's right, Mary's maiden name was also ONeill. I mean, that has to be pretty unique, right? Even in a town where everyone is named ONeill. I found a civil marriage certificate for Patrick ONeill and Mary ONeill in Port Glenone, just 30 miles north in County Antrim. Then I found birth and baptismal records for 5 children that the couple had together, most of them in Carlisle, but one up in Port Glenone. That's pretty awesome, right? I've got all the information I need. Then I took a closer look and I discovered a problem. My great-great-aunt, Mary Ann ONeill, was born in June of 1871, while her brother, Charles, was born just 5 months later. That's just biologically ludicrous. There's no way that could happen. The only answer is that there were 2 different couples living within just 30 miles of each other, being about the same age and having children at the same time. So this brings up the second point, is you've really got to find the geographic location where your ancestor came from. And I'm not just talking the county. The county isn't enough. You've got to find the townland. Now, a townland is the smallest geographical unit in Ireland. If you tried to compare it to someplace in the U.S., it would be, say, a subdivision, a neighborhood, a part of a town. It's really that small. Patrick and his siblings were all born in Annagar Townland and baptized in Clonaux Parish. Charles, the son who was born 5 months after Mary Ann, was born in Lisnahunchin Townland, the exact same townland where I found that marriage license. Let's take another example of why the townland really matters, and this is a better one. The couple in question here are Michael Shiel and Bridget Kennedy. Now, I have a Philadelphia death certificate and an Irish marriage license for my second great-grandmother, both of which name Michael Shiel and Bridget Kennedy. So I know I've got the right names. I also have a whole bunch of other facts that point to the Swinford County Mayo area. I wanted to learn more about Michael Shiel and Bridget Kennedy in Ireland, so I started looking for records. And I found one, a 1903 death certificate registered in Swinford for Michael Shiel. It even listed Bridget Shiel as the widow. I'd found the guy, right? Now, this Michael Shiel lived a few miles away from where he had lived in the 1850s when my great-great-grandmother got married. But hey, people move, right? That shouldn't be a problem. I looked up Michael in Griffiths Valuation, which is one of the only sources where you can find names and townlands prior to 1901. A couple of years later, I decided to look up Michael Shiel in Griffiths Valuation. Now, Griffiths Valuation is the closest thing you'll come to a census record in Ireland prior to 1901. Griffiths Valuation is covering the 1840s and maybe the early 1850s, and I found a Michael Shiel in Corona Cross Townland, exactly where he was supposed to be living. That's what was listed on my second great-grandmother's marriage license as his home townland. But But I kept looking, and I found another Michael Shiel living in the Cloncarha Townland, again about 15-20 miles away on the other side of Swinford. And that Michael Shiel was the fellow who had died in 1903. I had two men named Michael Shiel, of about the same age, both married to women named Bridget, and living within 20 miles of each other. Let's get to the third point. You want two supporting facts. Ideally, you want a match on birth dates, a pretty close match, a couple of days is okay. And you want that on a death certificate or some other type of document in the United States or Canada or Australia, and on either a civil registration birth or a baptismal record in Ireland. But you could also combine a marriage year that you picked up from some source in the US that matches with a marriage license that you found in Ireland. Take Mary Powers McGurr. Her 1902 death certificate notes that she was 75 when she died, so she would have been born around 1826 or 1827. The 1900 US Census says she was born in May of 1826. A 1907 book, The Past and Present of DeKalb County, noted that Mary was born in County Waterford about 1825. Family oral history tells us that her parents were John Powers and Catherine Quinlan, and that they came from the Dungarvan area in County Waterford. So, I've got a county, I've got a month and a couple of years, and I've got the name of parents for Mary and for all of her siblings. Now I'm ready to search in Ireland, and lo and behold, I found several baptismal records for Mary's younger siblings from Stradbally Parish, which is just southeast of Dungarvan. They all name the parents as John Powers and Catherine Quinlan. That's a victory, right? Now, I did find a 20 May 1826 baptismal record from Mary Power, born to John Power and Catherine Power, from Tramore Parish, which is close to Waterford. That's pretty good. I do have some nagging doubts here. The parish is 15 miles from Stradbally, and Powers is the most common surname in County Waterford. So it's possible that this was for a different family. Still, I've proved who Mary's parents were and where they came from by connecting information from US documents with Irish documents.